Thank you so much. It's great to be here in New York with all of you this morning. Again, it's great to see all of you taking the time to be here. It's really an honor to have a chance to spend some time. I thought I'll start today with a bit of a perspective. In some sense, when I was even preparing for today's talk, it took me way back. In fact, a time when I had a lot of hair. You know, this is 1993 or thereabouts. I had just joined Microsoft, and we were about to launch a new product called Windows NT, which was our first attempt at building a server product, and it was really the beginning of what became the client-server era. And it was a fascinating time, and I realized that ever since that day, I've been waiting for this day. And the reason is, this is what I was doing at that particular event. It's one of those developer events we had where I was coding on screen, showing essentially a scenario which speaks even to today's digital transformation needs. For those of you who sort of dabble in the archaeology of technology, what I was doing there was connecting to an AS400. If I remember right, AS400s came with their own MRP systems built in. And so we were connecting to an AS400 using Windows NT with an SNA server, which was a product we had. And then we had an ODBC connector, which is a database connector on the client side, which allowed us to pull the data into an Excel spreadsheet. So you could take all the inventory, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then using this brand new technology I was so excited about called Olay automation, drive a document which was created to create a purchase order in order to deal with the back order situation. And I was like so excited that we can finally do these combinations, composite applications of office automation with business process. And I thought we have arrived, we are going to change the world. But I think here we are 24 years later, finally having the opportunity to truly probably realize that vision. It's stunning to me to see the digital transformation that is across our industries. Every part of our society, every part of our economy is so radically changing. And when you look at some of the industries, even just yesterday and today, and you're going to hear later from Judson about some of the amazing case studies, but take the automotive industry. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you had said automotive industry is going to outstrip the tech industry in terms of its use of ASICs, who would have sort of guessed that? But if you think about some of the best semiconductor work that's going on today, where the best camera work is going on today, it's actually all being driven because of what's happening in the automotive industry. Because in order to really crack autonomous driving, you have to crack computer vision. And in order to crack computer vision, you got to not only have cameras, but you have to have cameras which have deep neural nets. And those deep neural nets need to have cloud computing capacity to be able to train them. And so the entire supply chain and the value chain of that industry is being digitized. So it's no longer even the operating expense side, it's the core COGS. And now you can sort of go across this wheel. Whether you take retail, you take any industrial company, you take healthcare, so precision medicine or precision agriculture, both of them have the same pattern. And it's all around how can they harness some of these new natural interfaces, whether it's speech or vision or ink or touch, or all combination of them, and to use cloud computing capacity. But the real currency that I think drives a lot of this digital transformation, which is very different than even what we were attempting to do way back in 1993, is data and AI. And to me, that's really perhaps the characteristic of this generation or this transformation that's very different. It's no longer just about writing applications, writing a lot of logic to automate, but it's that ability to use AI to reason over large amounts of data to create the functionality, to create the disruption. And that, I think, is what is really very different. This is the context that motivates us. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. For us, these are absolutely more than just a set of words. There are many key elements to it. The first piece, to me, is the focus on both people and institutions that people build. In many cases, I think we sometimes pay a lot of homage to the ingenuity of people. And of course that is the case. People are the one, their ingenuity and their drive is what makes progress happen. But we do that, though, as individuals to build institutions, organizations. And to me, when we think about even our software products, we care deeply about really those organizations and institutions that you are trying to build and make sure that we account for it as a first-class construct in how we think about value creation. Of course, we think about it globally. I myself am a product of Microsoft's democratizing force reaching me where I was growing up, and I always remind myself of that, because if it was not for that, I wouldn't be where I am. And to be able to have that always reinforced in what we do, how we do it, how we truly bring these solutions into all the markets that we want to operate in is a huge part, because all of you operate globally, and we need to be able to support that global aspiration of every customer of ours. But the last piece is probably the most salient but most important, which is we can't and should not celebrate our technology. The only thing that's worth celebrating is the success you have with our technology, especially in today's age where every one of you are going to essentially build your own digital company and digital competency. The way we have to measure our success is how have we helped you build that capability? What success have you achieved because of that capability? That's at the end of the day the only thing, in fact, that's embodied even in our business model. Because we're not going to achieve any of our long-term business goals if we just said, let's just look at us, how cool we are in terms of our technology. And I think that's just absolutely one of the things that is endemically wrong with the tech sector. It's really quite, the question is, what is it that you can do with technology to truly make an impact in the world? That's what needs to be celebrated, and that's something that's core to our mission. Now, the goal, of course, as I said, is to help digital transformation, which is happening both on the people side as well as on the organizational side. More specifically, we think about these 4 outcomes, and we'll come back to this multiple times throughout today, that are the 4 outcomes that I believe all of you are seeking across any industry. How do you engage customers? How do you empower employees? How do you optimize your operations and change and transform your products and even business models? These are, broadly speaking, the 4 big digital transformation outcomes and strategies that you all are pursuing in all of the different industries. Now, if you sort of say, well, in some sense, we've been trying to do this forever. It's not new news that we want to engage customers or empower employees. But the way we are going to go about it this time, I think, is pretty drastically different. We've built, in the past, things like your systems of record. You've also built systems of engagement. You also invested in office and office productivity and communications tools. These were all things that were put in place in the hope that they can all come together to drive better engagement with customers, or to drive more empowerment to your employees, or change the efficiency frontier of your operations. But unfortunately, all of them fell a little short. The ability for us to be able to transcend any of these tech-created categories and create more of a system of intelligence that works uniquely for your industry, for your business, that's the real pursuit. When we sort of say engaging customers, we're not talking about being restricted to one system of record or system of engagement. It's not just about your CRM system, because most of the interesting work that you do with customers happens outside of your CRM system. The question is, how do you relate it back to your system of record? That's the challenge. Same thing with operations. In fact, operations are all great, happy path, except there are exceptions. And when exceptions happen, they all happen outside the system. And the ability to be able to relate those exceptions back to the system, that feedback loop is what we describe as this system of intelligence. Unless and until you measure yourself as saying, do I have, for each one of these digital transformational outcomes, a feedback loop where when something happens, an observation or an event in the field, and it flows all the way back to some analytical or predictive power, which then allows you to change that outcome. That's really what it is. It's not about just recording something. It's not just about doing analysis, but or just taking action. It's about those three things in one virtuous feedback cycle. And to us, those systems of intelligence is what we now need to seek to create across all these 4 digital transformational outcomes. And the question then is, what are the levers? Or what's the way to go about it? I'll claim there are 3 massive things that are changing that you could take advantage of as you pursue this mission to create your own systems of intelligence. The first is breaking down these monolithic suites and moving away from those monolithic suites to these modular, modern business process applications. And that's what we did with Dynamics 365. So when we launched it in November, the idea was not just to take what we had with Dynamics CRM or Dynamics ERP and then move it to the cloud and offer it as a cloud service. It's a much more fundamental change in the architecture of what is Dynamics. For example, many of our customers that Judson and James will talk about would start with, say, an IoT project in Azure. Right, whether it's a retailer or a manufacturer, they're collecting lots and lots of data. And then that IoT project with lots of data, which rendezvous with the cloud, would immediately become an analytics project, because what do you do with that data? You want to be able to create some predictions, or do something like preventive maintenance, which starts with being able to predict. Once you say, well, I have a prediction, you got to take some action on that prediction. There's no point saying I have predicted something that's going to break down and not do anything about it. So therefore, then that will become a field service, process automation. Once you're into field service, you need to be able to talk to your inventory systems. You need to be able to, in fact, talk to your manufacturing systems. And so then ultimately it'll become a new automation loop. And it is not about replacing an automation loop you had in the past. It's a complete new loop. And they needed that modularity to be able to connect these pieces. And so that's really the type of architecture that we have built into Dynamics 365, where you can pick any one of these modules, chain it with any other module, as opposed to, well, this is a CRM module, this is an ERP module. You don't have to suite up. In fact, for your specific role, for your specific business process, you can, in fact, take that automation you need and compose it. So that networked way of thinking of business process applications, modular way of thinking, is what Dynamics facilitates. The second challenge is, even if you have all of these modern modules and they're modular, the data is still captive, you would say, right? So each one of these applications has a data model which is rich. And the question is, they're all disconnected data silos. And more particularly, you could say there's data silos of productivity and communication and business applications, because those are also categories. It's not good enough to bring CRM and ERP together. What about where the work really gets done, which is in a tool like Office 365? And this is where we want the data model itself to become a connected data graph. Instead of having these silos that are captive to each application, imagine a world where everything that is underneath these applications is addressable in the context of those systems of intelligence that you're creating, so that you can then add AI, add intelligence. So there's this one feature of our CRM product which does essentially measure the relationship health. lead scoring and those kinds of things have been there forever. There have been econometric models that have been created, and you would literally go in and sort of look at all of the leading attributes and essentially run this model and come up with these scores. But a modern way to think about this, though, is to really look at the communication channels. What's happening in LinkedIn? What's happening in your Outlook? What's happening in all these other places with people in your organization and that customer in order to be able to measure the essential relationship index. So to me, that ability to reason without being bound to any one application is transformative. And that's what we mean by artificial intelligence applied on top of this connected graph. And so Office 365, Dynamics 365, LinkedIn all come together as this one data plane for you to be able to re-engineer, to be able to build those systems of intelligence. The third and perhaps most salient aspect of transformation, or levers that you can pull in order to achieve the transformation, is so far we have built a lot of these custom logic, right? I mean, one of the best kept secrets of all of business applications industry is that everybody will come and say, well, we have the solution, except we have the beginnings of a solution, not the solution. You all know all the work you put in to actually make it fit your function, your business process. And by the way, it's not constant in time because businesses are not static. You don't deploy a system and say, well, that's it. I don't have to make a single change anymore because businesses don't run that way. So the fact that change is constant and business systems have to change with your businesses changing, that means you need a fantastic extensibility model. But the problem is if those extensibility models are all different, there is impedance between one extensibility model in your ERP system with another extensibility model in your CRM system, which happens to be different than what's happening in your productivity and communications, then you have a real challenge because you are trying to compose on top of it another middleware product that you buy for doing workflow. So to us, cracking that open, making sure that there is one customization architecture, one data model, so that you can build these composite apps is a huge part of what I think is the breakthrough we've achieved with some of the tools that you will see today. So these three things are really what makes up these modern business application suite that I think we're ready in some sense to be able to achieve that transformative power of building systems of intelligence that are unique to your industry, that are unique to your business, that keep up with that pace of change that you are driving inside of your business. And to us, the rest of what you hear today is all about bringing this to life. How are customers using it? What's the way to go about? What's the journey look like? Because that's where we want to be able to have that deep partnership. And so I'm really, really excited about the progress we have made, but perhaps I'm more excited about the learning that we have now gotten onto, which is it's our own feedback loop. It is really the ambitions that you have to fundamentally transform your business, fundamentally change your industry, that is driving a lot of our innovation. Because if you think about how we have made progress, we have ourselves gotten into these feedback cycles with our customers and our partners who have driven what we do next, how we do it, how do we think about the technology advances. And to me, this combination of things that we have brought together really help us partner much more deeply than anything that we may have done, because many of you have been great customers of ours, but I would say we're going to transition from that phase to becoming deeper partners where we want to be able to help you build your systems of intelligence, build your digital transformation capability. That's how we are going to measure our success going forward. So again, thank you so very much for spending the time today. I know that James and Judson and the rest of the Microsoft team are thrilled to be able to have this deeper conversation on a very, very important area for Microsoft, which is Dynamics 365 in combination with everything else we're doing. Thank you all very, very much.